Hi, welcome back to our 21 question series. So these are the questions that we would ask an estate planning attorney if we were creating an estate plan. So I'm Scott Stork with Polaris Law Group, and this is my partner Raymond Chandler. And before we get started, remember to subscribe to the channel. That way you get all of the notifications of the upcoming videos, because this is a 21 question series, so we've got more questions to go. So today's topic is, what is the estate planning process for the client? So when you talk to an attorney, ask them what their process is. And so Ray, why is it important to know that the attorney has a process?
It's important to know, one, what you're getting involved with. How long is it going to take? What are the meetings that you need to be at? What are your responsibilities? What is the attorney's responsibilities to make sure that your plan gets accomplished? And so a lot of the questioning in this is to make sure that you know what that process is, that you know what you're getting into, and that you know your plan's going to work because of the process. And so watch closely to how it's answered and make sure that there actually is a process, and that it's not just simply, well, you come into a couple meetings and we sign some documents. Because that's kind of the traditional estate planning process for most attorneys, to be honest, is you come in, you tell us who you want to leave your stuff to when you pass away, who you want to be on your power of attorney, and then you come in and sign your documents, and we'll get to it when we get to it. Versus, do they have a timeline? Do you know what those meetings are for funding? Is there a process for funding? Do you know what the meetings are for maintenance? Is there a process for maintenance? Or is there anything beyond just simply generating some documents? In that process, where are you going to be asking additional questions? Where are you going to be learning about your estate plan? Where are you going to be reviewing your estate plan? Things of that nature, to really see what that process looks like and make sure it's not just simply, well, we're just going to get the plan done. Because you want to make sure that there's a process beyond that. So most things that you really need to make sure that plan is going to work that are missing in a lot of processes is, one is timeline. And this is very important, is know what that timeline looks like for you and for the attorney. To, number one, just make sure it gets done. And I hate to say it, but there are estate plans out there that they met with the attorney, they started up the process, and there was never a follow-up meeting. The estate plan never got signed, never was executed, never was reviewed, and client passed away. And so the plan wasn't there, or worse yet, client became disabled, and now they still can't plan anymore. So make sure you have that, they have the timeline there to be able to answer what that looks like in their process. Is funding part of their process? And we'll talk about funding through some of these questions a lot of times, but is funding part of that process in a way beyond simply they're just going to give you a piece of paper that tells you how to do it yourself? What is the process for funding? What is the process for maintenance? What is the process for settlement? So is there a process already in place for settlement, regardless of whether that's today, next year, or 20 years from now? Does the attorney have a process in place for that? And so you really want to make sure that you understand, going into hiring an attorney, what the process is going to be, so you know what you're getting into, and that you know all the parts of the estate plan are covered in that process to make sure that you get in a plan that works. And so we've developed our process. And Scott, what is the process that we use for our clients?
Yeah, so we have a very defined process. So we have a lot of clients. We're a busy estate planning practice. We've got a process kind of drilled down to make sure that if a plan starts, that the plan actually gets finished, and that we hit all of the areas where plans usually fail. So Ray's talked about some of those areas of failure and things like that. So how our process works is, the initial meeting that we have with clients is just to kind of get to know the situation, help the client understand what planning is, what they can do, make sure they're asking the right questions, and if we work together, then we move into what we call our design portion. And so the design meeting is where we design your plan. And it's not just our heads in a yellow legal pad asking you who you want to leave things to and who your powers of attorney and helpers are. This is really designing a plan, which we'll talk about next week, much more cohesively and comprehensively than what is normal. And so when we design your plan, then within 30 days, we come back to actually sign the documents. And so we have heard the horror stories of a plan being designed and they sit on an attorney's desk for 6 months and everybody forgets about it. We actually have a very distinct timeline. Within 30 days, come back, sign the plan. Rather than that being the end, we move on to the next step, which is what Ray said is the funding portion. And we'll talk about that a little more also, but that's getting your assets and property tied to your plan. We move within a certain period of time to get that portion done. And then we move into the maintenance and updating phase. And so in that portion, we're going to want to help keep those documents updated, make sure changes that you have are taken into account, and we have a process for that. And then when you do become disabled, when you do pass away, if the disability happens, and we all know at some point we're going to die, then we're there to help the family settle out the estate and make sure that that portion is taken care of so that the plan actually works. And so we've got a plan that takes us through all of the stages of the estate, even there for the family after a death, so that nothing falls through the cracks.
So that's the way we do our process and how we treat our clients. And that's part of these questions of the 21 questions that we're having you watch these videos on. So again, subscribe to the channel and hit your notifications so you can keep up with us and see the next questions as they come through. And next week, our question that we're going to be asking the attorneys is, how do you help me design my estate plan? So what does that look like? So again, stay up with the channel so you can hear the answer to that next week. And again, I'm Raymond Chandler, and this is Scott Stork, and we are with Polaris Law Group.